And as a result, there has been a surge of exports from the United States into Mexico, creating an additional 400,000 jobs, and we can create hundreds of thousands of more if we continue this trend. We know this works. If it doesn't work, you know, we give 6 months notice and we're out of it. But we've also had a test of his theory.
When?
In 1930, when the proposal by Mr. Smoot and Mr. Hawley was to raise tariffs across the board to protect our workers. And I brought some pictures too. You brought some pictures?
Ross is a protectionist?
This is a picture of Mr. Smoot and Mr. Hawley. They look like pretty good fellas. They sounded reasonable at the time. A lot of people believed them. The Congress passed the Smoot-Hawley Protection Bill. He wants to raise tariffs on Mexico. They raised tariffs, and it was one of the principal causes, many economists say the principal cause, of the Great Depression in this country and around the world. Now, I framed this so you can put it on your wall if you want to.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Would raising tariffs produce another?
We're talking totally different, unrelated situations. Now, you do need to measure twice and cut once, but then if you have a program that is failing, you should not institutionalize it. See, the Mexican program has failed. It's failed the people of Mexico. It's failed the people of the United States. These numbers they give of exports from the United States are not realistic numbers. For example, they count in the government figures automobile parts going into Mexico to be put into cars made by U.S. car companies in Mexico and shipped back to the United States to be sold as if Mexican consumers bought those parts. That didn't happen. Then if you take let's just say you have a piece of glass crystal that you spend $100 making it in this country. You're going to send it to Mexico to have $10 of additional work done to it. They count it as a $100 export. Then they count it as $100 to come into Mexico from the U.S. Then they count it as a $110 import back in the United States. Now then, when you look at how they count, the real export figures to Mexican consumers are tiny. The used factory equipment coming from U.S. factories going into Mexico, new factories going to Mexico.
Are not bought?
No, no. It's a Zenith moves equipment from the U.S. into Mexico. That's used equipment. Then we count that as if Mexican consumers bought it. Nobody bought anything. Old equipment just came to Mexico.
Let me respond to that if I can, because unfortunately, there's a grain of truth to that, but it's so tiny that it's not a half-truth. It doesn't quite rise to that level. There are a few things in that category, but the vast majority, 80 to 90%, are exports that stay in Mexico and are bought there. Here's what's happened to our trade surplus, and these figures are net figures. It takes into account everything that he's talking about in that small category. In 1987, before Mexico started lowering its taxes at the border, its tariffs, we had a $5.7 billion trade deficit with Mexico. After 5 years, the goods we make and sell into Mexico, the volume has been growing twice as fast as the goods they make and sell in the United States. So last year, we had a $5.4 billion trade surplus. Now, if that trend continued for another 2 years, and NAFTA will, by removing those barriers, greatly accelerate it, we will have a larger trade surplus with Mexico than with any country in the entire world.
Why are trade unions so opposed to it then?
Well, some of them...
I mean, if you're a friend that makes the tire, and he's a union member, is going to benefit from this, why is the unions aligned with Ross Perot? Why do we have this alignment of Ross Perot unions, Jesse Jackson, Pat Buchanan, and Ralph Nader? Because
some of them make the same mistake that, with all due respect, Mr. Perot makes. They confuse the bad trade deals in the past with this one, which is the first time we've been able to get one that's even Steven, with zero taxes on both sides. You know, I told you about my friend Gordon Thompson. The international president of his union opposes NAFTA. Gordon Thompson has taken the time to look at the facts, and he supports NAFTA. Let me tell you who else has taken the time. Every living former president of the United States in both parties, the two-termers and the one-termers, every former Secretary of State, every former Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Treasury, every living Nobel Prize winner in economics, conservatives, liberals, everyone in between, they've never agreed on anything anymore. Wait, let me just finish this one point. And distinguished Americans from Colin Powell to Tip O'Neill to Rush Limbaugh, Ross Perot Jr., the head of his business, Morton Meyerson, Orville Swindle, the head of United We Stand last time, and Ross Perot Sr. supported it until he started running for president and attempting to bring out the politics of fear.
Ross?
Will I be able to speak for a second or two from time to time?
You're on.
Because there's a lot of inaccuracies here. Let's go to the big picture and skip the personal stuff. People who don't make anything can't buy anything. Let's start with that. We are 85% of the market. Canada is 11% of the buying power.
So the total 3 market.
And Mexico is only 4%. People who don't make anything cannot buy anything. Never forget that. Now then, let's look at these exports. See, here's Mexico, 4%, Canada, 11%, United States, 85%. We're the biggest buyer of goods and services in the world. Please remember that tonight. That's one of our aces. Now then, here's the real export story. You get down here, these are the phony exports down here. Here are the real exports here, about $7.7 billion. You take this thing into pieces, you take this big number here and take it right down to here, and that's what you're really talking about. And just remember this. If you want to trade, you trade with people who make money. You don't trade with people who oppress their workers and they don't have any money. Now, it's true. Now, a good deal will sell itself, folks, just plain talk. 4 former presidents came out for it and couldn't sell it. All the secretaries of state came out for it and couldn't sell it. We had satellite going across 200 auditoriums across the country. That didn't sell it. Got Lee Iacocca for it. That didn't sell it. $30 million coming out of Mexico, and that is rotten and that is wrong, and that didn't sell it. $35 million coming out of corporate America to try to get out of this country, go south of the border, and hire that cheap labor, and that didn't sell it.
Let me know.
This dog just didn't hunt. Now, today they don't have the votes in the House of Representatives. We're in the 3rd quarter. They can get them because they're buying them big time with your tax money. We're working the halls night and day to make sure it doesn't happen. You can play a key role in it. But sure, they all tried to sell it to you, and the fact that they couldn't demonstrates that this deal is not good for our country.
Let me get a break, and then, but it doesn't impress you that every former president supports it?
It impresses me that they couldn't do it.
Oh, but it doesn't impress you that they support it?
That they show, those are the guys that cut the worst trade deals in history. He's already talked about it.
It's not over with.
Wait just a minute now. They did the Japanese deals. They did the Chinese deals. God bless them. They cost you 2 million jobs. 2 million jobs.
You think they fooled Colin Powell?
He's a great soldier, doesn't know anything about business.
We'll have the Vice President respond with Vice President Gore and Ross Perot after this.
But he couldn't.
We're back on Larry King Live. We'll be going to your phone calls in about 15 minutes, and we're going to cover as much of this as possible. We're going to be getting to jobs and other aspects of it, but I want the Vice President to respond to Mr. Perot, who's made some charges here that this is being bought.
Well, all of them, there's been more money spent against the NAFTA than for it, for sure. You can just look at the commercials. Every dollar that has been spent lobbying for it has been publicly disclosed. That is not true on the other side, and I would like to suggest to Mr. Perot. Well, I think it would be a good idea, seriously, if you would publicly disclose the finances of your organization lobbying against it. They have not released the money spent, the contributors, where it's coming from, how much of it is Mr. Perot's, where the rest of it is coming from. But there was another statement I wanted to respond to also, and that is that Mexico doesn't buy a lot of products, that they're too poor to buy a lot of products. There's a big misunderstanding in the minds of some people about that. They are buying a lot of products. In fact, they're our 2nd largest customer for manufacturing goods. They will be one of the largest customers overall if the trends continue. They already are.